It is Monday, February 19th, 2024. This is another edition of Football Today. That is a dude from the Talking Giants world, Bobby Skinner. I am Chris Rose, producer Mikey along for the ride as well. And it was very nice to see your boy Pennick get in here the other day and do such a nice job. Much better than the job he did umpiring in Blitzball Battle 4 in the debut. Did you see him taking a verbal harassment from the announcer up there in the booth?
I didn't. You guys got to send me like a little highlight package of like the Justin Pennick part. So I didn't catch that quite yet.
Yeah. Or you could just watch it. You could have been like one of the 5,100 people in the live stream last night.
I was locked in on some racing
Oh my
this
God.
weekend. I almost died in Daytona Friday night.
Oh,
It was a great time.
you okay?
Oh yeah. Well, what happened is I always go to the truck race on Friday nights. They moved another race because of rain, so we were there for 7 hours of racing and nine
Oh,
hours of drinking. And man,
oh,
I don't really drink like that. And I woke up Saturday morning not feeling so good, but it
oh.
was it was fun though.
Okay. Hopefully you've rallied for today because we've got
Oh,
some
I'm
good
ready.
topics for you. All right, good. Let's start off in the quarterback world in Pittsburgh. As explained by Jerry Dulac of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, quote, there appears to be some internal division that maybe Mason Rudolph should be the starter, given his performance at the end of the season where he led them to the playoffs. So I ask you this three-pronged question. Should Pittsburgh A, stick with Kenny Pickett, B, go with Mason Rudolph, or C, wipe the slate clean and either draft one or go the free agent route?
Well, unfortunately, they A is the only reasonable answer, and there's no good answer for this because they're at pick number 20, which is not good quarterback range. You drafted Kenny Pickett less than 2 calendar years ago. I know you could go look at Mason Rudolph's stats and like, oh man, that was actually better than you would have thought. But they kind of had a couple of explosive plays that skewer that a little bit. You cannot go with Mason Rudolph. They are just in a bad spot quarterback wise. They are in quarterback hell right now.
Well, I ask you why you can't do it. Like, it's never been easier to move off of a first round quarterback than right now, right? In the old days, you used to have to pay these guys an astronomical figure. Now you're slotted in, and he was what, the 20th pick or 20, whatever it was a couple of years ago. So he wasn't like the number 2 pick where the numbers are going to be that insane. The thing about Mason Rudolph, he's about to be a free agent, and he's been in your system forever, and you've never really considered him to be the guy anyway. So
Because
why
he's
right
not.
now? Yeah, because he's not. Exactly. We know that. So why can't you just wipe the slate clean, admit a mistake, not a huge mistake? You took a swing in a terrible quarterback class that year. He was the only guy who went in the first 2 rounds, I think. So why don't you just say, hey, we screwed it up. We're going to go try and fix it.
What's your solution to that? Because I just don't see the unless Kirk Cousins is a legit landing spot. That's a
Mhm.
legit landing spot for him, but I don't see that being the case. I feel like you just kind of got to let Arthur Smith get a year in with Kenny Pickett and play out this year. Because again, I just don't see the easy. I think drafting another QB at 20 would be you'd just be doing the Kenny Pickett thing all over again.
You could be, but we have seen guys that have I don't want to even say slide. I think if you're a first round quarterback, that's damn impressive, whether you're 120 or 32. Um, but maybe you just have to trust your evaluations of somebody, right? I mean, why wouldn't you give Michael Penix a shot? Why wouldn't you give Bo Nix a shot? I mean, if JJ McCarthy, I don't know if he's going to get all the way down there. Why wouldn't you?
It doesn't seem like JJ McCarthy's going to get. He might not even get out of the top 10
Right.
because I think those are two older quarterbacks who, Penix can do some decent things. Bo Nix, I'm not very impressed with. I feel like if you're like to me, those guys are similar profiles to Kenny Pickett, right? Without doing a full profile on either of them yet, but watching them, I watched all those guys down in Mobile, Alabama, and they are all very similar players to me. And I think Kenny Pickett is somewhat talented, and I think he's been under bad offensive coaching. I think Arthur Smith, even though it didn't go well in Atlanta, I think he's actually a halfway decent fit for them in Pittsburgh too. I would let it ride with Kenny Pickett for a year with not much expectation, but that's just kind of the best with what we have.
Okay. If that's the case, how many teams definitely have worse quarterback situations than the Steelers in the AFC? Here's my list. I got New England. I think Tennessee at this point, the Raiders and Denver. Those are the teams because there's way too many question marks. And by the way, some of those teams are going to fix that
Patriots
in the
top 3 pick.
right. Patriots top 3 pick. Um,
I mean, I like Will Levis more than I do Kenny Pickett at this point.
I do too. I do too. But I think that it's because he's only started what 8 games, or I don't even know what the number was last year.
Yeah, at least there's like a big ceiling there that's just not there with Pickett.
Yes, I would agree with you. Why wouldn't the Steelers? And I have to check their cap number, so I'm speaking a little bit out of turn. Why wouldn't you make a play for a Baker Mayfield?
So I feel like you're just staying in QB hell with that.
Really? I thought Baker played great last year. I thought he was phenomenal. You don't think that you could win a lot of games with Mike Tomlin's coaching and the Steelers defense? And, I mean, they do pretty good drafting elsewhere.
I mean, do you think Pittsburgh's going to be a better situation than Tampa last year?
For Baker?
Yeah. And Baker's up and down. I mean, he's just an up and down quarterback in his career. Like you said, he was very nice, but they lost Dave Canales. I don't see Arthur Smith being the guy who even gets that hot. Maybe Baker, I'd rather have Baker than Kenny Pickett right now. But I mean, the floor for Baker might be 25 mil a year.
I mean, it's kind of important to pay that position.
But to me, you just invested in Kenny Pickett less than 2 years ago. He's had horrible offensive coaching. I'm not saying but I think Kenny Pickett can be just as good as what Baker's done.
Okay.
I would roll with Kenny Pickett. I don't love it. I'm not feeling good as a Pittsburgh front office person, but to me, that's your best option. Not investing big money in someone who's not going to be your future, and roll in a year with Kenny Pickett and seeing what more you have with him. Even though I don't have faith in that either. I think they're just in a bad spot. The only answer though is do not start Mason Rudolph.
Well, I don't think they'll get that chance. I think he's going to be a free agent. I think somebody will sign him as a clear-cut number 2, which he wasn't even this year because that was Mitchell Trubisky for most of the season. All right, speaking of quarterbacks on the move, according to Thomas Goonley, I believe is how you say it, of the Denver Post, Russ and Sierra, they've put their Denver mansion up for sale. Wilson expected, of course, to be released right around the league new year. Do you have a good landing spot for the former Super Bowl champion and 9-time Pro Bowler?
No. Actually, New England is the only one that would make sense to me. Because to say they went Jaden Daniels, you could bring Russell in as kind of a bridge starter, help build some of that culture there. But the other ones is Atlanta. That would to me would be man, this is what we're doing if you're the Falcons. The Raiders, I don't know if he's going to fit into that locker room. To me, the Patriots are the only one that could make sense. But again, I don't think he's going to get a lot of money. All right. And I don't think there's any spot where he's like, yep, he's our starter for the year, and this is good. We're happy with it.
I'm having a real hard time with this one. Now, the thing working in Russ's favor is that the Broncos are locked in to pay him $39 million next year. So he can take a veteran's minimum. And so any team you imagine would be interested in him because it's not like, oh, well, we have to manipulate the cap a little bit and make some moves in order to bring Russ in. That is not the problem here. The problem is finding the right dance partner. If Kirk Cousins moves on, does a place like Minnesota make sense in Kevin O'Connell's offense?
I thought about that, but that O'Connell offense is about being on time. And
right.
Russ is not that, right?
That is not him at all.
Again, I mean, the Patriots are the only one that I make sense because he's a good fit for that culture, a bridge starter, to whatever quarterback they draft, if they do draft a quarterback with the top 3 pick. But I mean, I understand that quarterbacks have been playing into their 40s and stuff, but I mean, Baker's going to be 36 this year. At some point, it does end.
Wait, who'd you say he's going to be 36?
Or Russell. Sorry, I said Baker.
Okay, yeah. Similar dimensions. Yeah, it's amazing. I cannot find a place for him. And I think that even though his numbers were okay, I think there's a little bit of a football stink around him right now.
That wasn't good QB play last year. That was, again, I remember when we were doing MVP talk, we looked at the box scores. And like Russell Wilson's box score stats are kind of good, but when you watch them play, that was ugly offensive
Yep.
football.
Yep.
It was like hold on to the ball, throw a check down, and then throw the ball deep to Cortland Sutton 4 times a game.
I don't know where he ends up. I, he's got to definitely be the starter. You can't have a guy like that who he's played every down since his rookie year. That's what he does. He plays. He plays. He doesn't hold a clipboard. I mean, we saw what happened last year in Denver when he had to go do that at the end. That wasn't pretty.
Well, and
But man,
Russ wouldn't want to do that. Like to me, again, what you could say, oh, he could be the best quarterback in this spot, but what team wants to come in and bring Russ their starter, and it gets a little harder, right?
I mean,
Again, like maybe
just
it would it be the worst thing in the world for Russ to hang it up? Like it'd be better for him to hang it up than be a backup.
oh boy, that's a great question. $39 million to hang it up and go do TV. That'd be fascinating. What about Pittsburgh? We just talked about that.
Think he's going to fit in with that locker room very well, like with some of the issues they have. Um, you know, Tony Romo was in a situation like this. Now, I think Romo was playing better, and he just decided, you know what, it's better for me to just quit than trying to go and do a last hurrah in Jacksonville. And again, I think Romo was better at that point. Why can't Russ? I don't know if he has to go TV, but he's made a lot of money. Again, New England is the one that makes sense, right? Go do New England. But we are, I mean, we're heading for like a Cam Newton end of career type of stuff for Russell Wilson right now,
Yeah, it
where
just
he
feels
could,
like it's going to go fast that way. It already
yeah,
has. It already has.
yeah,
He's not a Hall of Famer, is he?
no,
I don't either.
but
Well,
man, it's tough. He had some really like he was
great
really
years.
good in Seattle. I don't want to discount what he was in Seattle, so maybe he is, but just the end of career stink is it's fresh in our minds right now. So maybe we'll feel different about him for years. We know it's easier for quarterbacks than any position, but because he he was really good in Seattle. I don't want to discount that either.
All right, let's move on. The DraftKings has the highest odds of Kirk Cousins returning to Minnesota this offseason. But if the veteran free agent does become available, the Atlanta Falcons are next on the odds list. If Kirk flies and lands in Atlanta, are they a Super Bowl contender?
You know, it sounds silly when you talk about a 7-10 team and not, you know, a top 5 to 7 QB with Kirk Cousins. He's probably around that 8 to 10 range. Like, oh, Kirk Cousins makes it like that sounds like overreaction. But I don't think it is. With the state of the NFC, you're matching him with a top offensive line, a good wide receiver core, a great running back tight end duo. They went 7-10 with the worst sustained QB play in the NFL. They're top 10 in rushing, and their defense isn't as bad as I thought when I went back and looked at it. Right, like they
Mm-hmm.
only had 8 interceptions, Jesse Bates being 6 of them. They were number 18 in scoring defense, number 12 in EPA per play, and the last 2 games of the year when that team seemed to have quit really made it worse. If you cut out those last 2 games, they're number 8 in scoring D and number 5 in EPA per play. Uh, so I do think so because they're gonna. If you put them on the Falcons, they are the clear division winner there. I I will take them up against, you know, Detroit and Green Bay, and Dallas is, you know, a little more talented, but they choke in the playoffs. San Fran is obviously there. But yeah, I absolutely think they're contending. Like to me, they're an automatic like second round team in the NFC.
Yeah, I would have a good feeling about them because whatever deficiencies they did have defensively, and they were slightly better than middle of the pack. You just gave us some numbers there. I think Raheem Morris is going to ratchet that up. I think offensively, Zach Robinson, I think working with Kirk Cousins would be perfect, right?
Perfect.
He's,
It's a perfect fit there.
yes. And of course, he's coming over from the Rams where he's worked with Matthew Stafford the last few years, and we saw how successful that pairing has been. I do think so. And they also have a top 10 pick. So,
Thank you. They have a good, and they would not have to go and trade for a quarter. They don't have to use a pick on
right.
a quarterback. You
Yes.
plug him in. You could use that top 10 pick on like there's some wide receiver, like make that offense even more lethal. Get a Brian Thomas Jr. out of LSU.
Hmm.
Breakdown on the channel coming later this week.
Nice.
Um, or get best player available at defense. Like they do need a lot of help in the front seven
Hmm.
department too. So you can go get one of those guys.
Hey,
But
go
they
get
they are
Dallas Turner.
primed to be the surprise team. If they get Kirk Cousins, they are to me they're a playoff lock. And I think I have no surprises if they're in the NFC Championship.
And I believe, according to Over the Cap, they are right around the same salary cap situation as the Minnesota Vikings, right around 25 million available in space. Is there some, finagling you're going to have to do with the caps to fit Kirk Cousins in there and still do what you want the rest of the offseason? Yes. But we are talking about the most important position in sports. So I think you and I are in agreement here. I think that would be fun. I like their coaching hire in part because not only do I believe in Raheem Morris for the second time as a full time coach, he was also an interim coach there for a short stint a few years ago. But I like the offensive hire, which when you're a defensive minded head coach, that's the number one thing people want to know is, are you doing a good job with your offense? Yes, the guy from the McVay tree. It makes sense. All the numbers add up there. So I think Atlanta is primed, but don't screw up this quarterback stuff. Please. You've done that enough. I kind of feel like Atlanta's a little bit like the Chargers of the NFC. Like they're talented. It feels like their coaching has held them back in recent years, and you wonder why they aren't better.
And I think even if they had good quarterback, again, I think like they had the worst sustained quarterback play throughout the year,
Hmm.
not including like teams that got injured, guys that got injured and stuff. Like if they had even a average or above average QB play, Arthur Smith might still have his job. So
Maybe.
because they probably win that division. Um, they are primed to make a big jump if they get Kirk Cousins. Like so, to me, we'll see how Philly rebuilds, but to me, they're in the top four. Like San Fran is obviously still number one. We'll see how Philly rebuilds. I'd probably put them at two. I think they're going to figure it out with some of the coaching stuff, and then Dallas three, Atlanta four.
Yep, you're right.
I would take them over Detroit and Green Bay at this moment.
Let's get out of the quarterback realm for just a second. A pair of big name NFC East running backs could be on the open market. Your guy, Saquon Barkley, of course, and Tony Pollard of the Cowboys, who Micah Parsons said Dallas should actually bring back. Very productive, like the last third of the season. So the question is with Barkley, I guess how close he is to Christian McCaffrey and you bring him back. But I guess my big question about these guys is, do you think one, both, or neither return to their respective squads?
I don't have a great feel on how Dallas feels about Pollard in this, but I can speak to Saquon. It makes all the sense in the world for both sides for Saquon Barkley and the Giants to break up. But they are in a toxic relationship where the Giants don't have offensive weapon. He's their best offensive weapon, right? And Saquon likes to stay, despite that it's a horrible football situation for him because he wants to have a career after football as a New York Giants lifer, and all that comes with that in the New York, media market. So I can't I don't believe that these two sides are going to quit each other. And I think the Giants and Saquon figure something out, even though I am on the boat of letting Saquon Barkley walk. He's heading into year seven. He misses games every year. So he's not creating the explosives at the even close to what he was doing early in his career. It's a bad offensive line. It's just we invested in running back for us to have a bad running game. Like at some point, you got to move off Saquon Barkley for the Giants. This isn't going to last forever. We are coming off year four. I would say bring him back, but we're not.
I know this is a tough one, right? It hits a little close to home. Here's the advantage for guys like Barkley and Pollard. This is not a great running backs class, and it's certainly not close to what we had last year, where we had two dudes taken in the top 12, and they were both amazing, right? Bijan Robinson, I think he was taken 8 by the Falcons, 7 or 8, and then Jameer Gibbs was taken 12th by the Lions, and just both of them were sensational in every facet of the game. There's not that guy this year. You probably won't see a running back taken until maybe the middle of the second round, unless somebody gets a little frisky and trades up and goes and gets somebody. Now, there's a bunch of guys I think that'll end up going in rounds 2 and 3, and that's perfectly fine in today's world. I mentioned Christian McCaffrey's name. How close to McCaffrey is Barkley?
Not anymore. They're not close.
Right.
Uh, Chris McCaffrey's always been a better receiver by,
Hmm.
to me, a good margin over Saquon Barkley.
Hmm.
And heck, if Saquon Barkley goes behind a really good run scheme and offensive line, he will be good next year, right? Like I don't view him as a bad player last year, but it was bad production, and he's not the guy that once took like made up for that, right? Like earlier in his career, it was special, right? Like it was stuff we have never seen, right? Where it's like, how is he doing some of the stuff that he's doing? That type of stuff doesn't happen anymore, despite him still being a good running back. It's just not a good. It's this is not the way for the Giants to fix their running game is by paying a running back who's entering year 7, misses games every year, and just had 3.9 yards per carry, which is well below average.
Right. If I were both these teams now, Pollard, I think they might be able to get back on a 1 year deal. To be honest with you, I know he
Right.
played. Micah Parsons wants him back, and he did his numbers and the running game's numbers were significantly better the last 6 or 7 games or whatever the cutoff mark was. But now, we know what he is, and more importantly, I guess what he isn't. He's not the lead dog, and there aren't a lot of lead dogs anymore, right? I mean, McCaffrey is one of one. Nick Chubb, who knows what he's going to look like when he comes back from this major knee injury, his second major knee injury. But those are the guys you pay. You just don't. You can pay running backs. You can. There are
Hmm.
a couple of special ones. I just don't think that Saquon falls into that category. And the Giants have too much to repair to start sinking financial resources. Now, I'll listen if you want to say, well, why'd they pay Daniel Jones instead of say, fine, but
Yeah,
they
two
did.
mistakes don't make a, two
Right.
wrongs don't make a right.
You can't do that. You can't throw bad money after bad money. It'll leave you on the outside looking in at the playoffs. So don't do it. Say, nice job. We'll take a guy in the third round. We'll live with that. We'll make it work. He might not be Saquon, but if he's 85% of Saquon and costs 20% of Saquon, then that's a win for us.
Invest in the offensive line. Spend that money, that 10 to 12 million
We've
per
been
year
trying.
trying to get offensive linemen, right? And we've seen it, right? Offensive, running back is dependent on the offensive line and the run scheme. Like you said, you have special guys that can go above and beyond that, but Saquon at that point is not that. He's a
Right.
very good running back still, but I'm just not betting on him getting better with time because he's gotten worse every single year. The numbers, the eye test, it shows it's gotten worse over time, and I'm not betting on that getting better over the next 2 years, especially with the way the Giants are situated with their roster.
All right, we'll wrap things up talking a little bit more about Micah Parsons. He scored 37 points and won the NBA All-Star Celebrity Game MVP. I think he still is shooting. I think he shot more than the guys on Sunday, which is saying something when they take 168 3-pointers or whatever it was. Name one NBA player currently out there that you'd like to try and see suit up on Sundays.
Ben Simmons, so he's off my team. Kyrie Irving because he ruined my team. I'd like to see him get lit up. Joel Embiid because I can't stand him. No, the real answer is LeBron because I actually think LeBron would have been a great NFL player if he did that, if he went that route.
I've told you this before. He does not like contact. Okay, he is an
He's got
athletic.
accustomed to basketball. Like if he was playing football, he would like he I, he's an insane athlete that we've like really never seen. Like I
No,
think the whole he doesn't like contact thing is more of like he's just adapting to the NBA. It's annoying as shit when they flop and stuff, but that's just the NBA, and he's trying to get the most out of it. Like what he's able to do at this point of his career is still nuts. To me, he would have been a star NFL player, and I would have liked to see that.
um, I always thought about this when I would watch LeBron, particularly in his early years with the Cavs, and he would sprint down the court. It's only 94 feet, right? I mean, how often are guys? We really only get to see them sprint maybe 60 feet at a time, and you're like, God damn, I would love to see him run a 40-yard dash. I've always wanted to see it. Um, but I would say another Cavalier. I don't know how closely you follow the NBA, but Donovan Mitchell is built like a running back. He's listed at 6'3", 215. I think he's shorter than 6'3". So he's pretty close to the dimensions of Adrian Peterson. Now, I'm not saying he's going to shake your hand and rip it off like AP did, but I have always said, my God, he would make an incredible running back. He's shifty. He's got great feet, amazing change of direction and power. I would love to see him run the football. Now, I need to make sure he's out of a Cavaliers uniform because I can't have him playing both because I need him. I need him in the Cavs, but I think he's one dude who could get it done.
He's one of my favorite players in the NBA. I want the Nets to try and go get him. I'm trying to think of anyone
He's solid.
outside the obvious answer of LeBron. Um, yeah, to me, as soon as you asked this, I just thought of players I want to see get lit up, and that was Ben
That
Simmons
was
and
hilarious.
Kyrie Irving
That
and
was
Joel
fun.
Embiid.
That was fun. Well, you don't like Embiid, huh?
No, I think he talks so much shit for a guy who's never been out of the second round. Hey, and speaking of the John Boy Media, like remember when him and Karl Anthony Towns went after it,
Mm.
and Karl Anthony Towns worked him, and he got up like acting like he had won that interaction, and that to me, I just he talks so much shit for a guy who's gassed in the second round. Never even left the second round in the Eastern Conference. I cannot stand Joel Embiid, and there's been
Wow.
some run-ins with the Nets and stuff too.
Wow. Making your presence felt on that. All right, we're back at it again later this week. We'll keep you posted which day of the week it is, whether it's most likely a Thursday, I think is probably where we're going to end up and
Yeah.
find a happy medium on that. And there's always off-season talk, and then we've got the combine next week, and a couple weeks after that, start of the league new year, and then draft is. I mean, it's all coming right at you. We can't wait. We cannot wait. So for our producer, Mikey, who always does a bang-up job, and Bobby Skinner from the Talking Giants world, I am Chris Rose. We will see you later this week on Football Today.